last video in my Snopes.com reading segment in the autoerotica section, and this next one is called Tryst and Shout. Claim an adulterous couple trysting in a sports car becomes trapped inside the automobile and each other and has to be cut out by the fire department. And this is a legend, which means that they can't prove that it's true, but they can't prove that it isn't true either. And here is an example from 1978. And it says, lovers cut free from embrace. London, a tiny sports car leaves a lot to be desired, is a midnight trysting spot two secret lovers have learned. Wedged into a two-seater, a near-naked man was suddenly immobilized by a slipped disc, trapping his woman companion beneath him. According to a doctor writing in a medical journal here, the desperate woman tried to summon help by honking the horn with her foot. A doctor, ambulance driver, fireman, and a group of interested passerby quickly surrounded the car in Regent's Park. The lady found herself trapped beneath 200 pounds of pain-racked, immobile man, said Dr. Brian Richards of Kent. To free the couple, firemen had to cut away the car frame, he said. The distraught woman helped out of the car and into a coat, sobbed, "How am I going to explain to my husband what has happened to his car?" Okay, and now the variations on this story are: the reason why the couple becomes stuck in the car varies. They simply become wedged into a space too small to free themselves. The man who is on top injures his back and is unable to move. Freezing weather immobilizes them. The effects of alcohol or carbon monoxide fumes render the lovers incapable of freeing themselves. The woman is startled, generally by the approach of someone else, which those who commit an infidelity are ultimately exposed by some accidental or freakish occurrence. Some variations heighten the couple's humiliation and possibly increase the implied moral censure, since we hold persons of privilege to higher standards than ourselves by making one or both of them prominent people in our community. The punchline delivered by the woman in the final sentence has several possible interpretations. The wife is so immoral that the wrongness of her infidelity, especially in the light of her narrow escape, doesn't give her pause at all. She is solely concerned with trying to explain away the evidence of it. The wife considers her unfaithfulness to her husband to be a wrong of far lesser magnitude than ruining his car. The woman cares so little for her boyfriend that his well-being is much less important than covering up their affair. The wife realizes that it is the destruction of his precious car and not her affair that will make her husband most angry. He values his automobile more than he values his spouse. The example above was cited by Train as an actual, undated Reuters article, with a footnote indicating that the story was supposedly also covered by the London Sunday Mirror sightings. This legend was used as the plot of a 1985 British comedy film called Car Trouble, last updated 22nd March 2011. Okay, and since this video is still running a bit short, I am going to read the next one from this website, the next little urban legend type article. And the next one is called Stick Stiffed. The claim is this: after a young man slips his date an aphrodisiac and leaves her alone in the car, he returns to find that she has impaled herself on the stick shift handle in a sexual frenzy. And just like the one before, this one is a legend, so they can't prove that it is or isn't true. And here is the example, and this is collected via email in 1995. A friend at work says that when she was in high school, a story circulated about induces an itching sensation in sensitive membranes, a feeling that allegedly increases a woman's desire for intercourse. No medical or scientific test has ever shown Spanish fly to be deserving of its reputation as an aphrodisiac, however, and its indiscriminate use can result in serious medical problems. The legend of the girl and the gearshift lever has been circulating since at least the early 1950s and has probably been in existence as long as automobiles have been around. The legend combines the male fantasy of a love potion that turns any female into a willing sexual partner with a sort of medical sorcerer's apprentice horror story about the perils of uninitiated attempts to cast powerful spells they can't control. Perhaps the latter point plays on the adolescent male fear of the perceived strength and irrationality of the female sex drive. The idea that even a nice girl is really a ravening sexual beast just waiting to be awakened, and that if you do arouse this primal lust, it will be more than you can handle. Female hypersexuality is a common feature of adolescent sex legends. There may also be an element of the sexist can't leave them alone for a minute in the fact that the boy leaves, then comes back to find his girlfriend sexually active. The unfortunate young man then experiences the ultimate American male nightmare, being cuckolded by his own automobile. And this was last updated on the 22nd of March, 2011. Okay, and since this is still a little shorter than I would like it to be, I am going to add the last and final story in the autoerotica section, since it does seem that this one is a little bit longer, so this video may go on longer than I anticipated them going on. So if it's too long for you, I am sorry in advance. But the next one is called The Fur in the Dark. A young lady on a date breaks wind in private, only to find out it wasn't so private after all, and this one, like the others before it, is a legend, so they cannot verify its validity, I suppose would be the word that I'm looking for. And this example stricken for the last hour with a rather bad attack of wind. By the time her date arrived, it was all she could do to get from the house and into the car without disgracing herself. As Dave closed the door on her side and walked round to his, in desperation, Caroline exploded with a very large and loud fart. Dave, getting into the driving seat, appeared not to have noticed. However, turning to her and indicating towards the back seat, he said, "Let me introduce my two friends, Linda and Brian. I thought they would like to join us tonight." And the origins of this legend are on the all-time list of nightmare first date scenarios. This one ranks right up there. It's the classic embarrassment tale with the longed-for great first impression doing a crash and burn before the outing has even fairly begun. Our flatulent date story has been part of popular culture for decades, with the oldest print versions dating from 1976, and others recalling having heard it as far back as 1963. In each of these stories, it's always the girl who humiliates herself, and always in front of a surprise double date couple. Dating is an anxiety-ridden pastime, and a legend like this brilliantly captures our worst fears about what could go wrong. Horrifyingly, this isn't a legend about crazed killers or hooks left on car doors. This one actually could happen to us. A kitsy tummy leading to a mistimed belch or expulsion of none too fragrant wind lies within the realm of possibility, and it would be just our luck for this to happen when an audience is present. We're an odd species. We know the gastrointestinal events are a normal, expected part of our existence. Yet we live in terror that a burp or a fart will escape us while we're with others. Perhaps a refresher from is in order about how one properly reacts to such events. Acceptable noises. These are noises such as burping or the sounds accompanying choking, to which the response should come from the noisemaker himself, provided that the choking was not complete, in which case he is absolved of all social responsibility, except that of having left his papers in order. Society acknowledges that these noises are made from time to time, but does not dignify them with a response. The offender says, "Excuse me," and the subject is considered closed. Unacceptable noises. Miss Manners does not plan to mention them, chiefly because they are unmentionable, but you all know who you are. What they are. At any rate, these are noises that are acknowledged by neither the noisemaker nor the noise recipient, because socially they do not exist. The practice of staring hard at the person next to you when, for instance, your own stomach has given off a loud rumble, is therefore to be condemned on grounds of etiquette as well as morals. In other words, if somebody nearby cuts the cheese, the correct response is nothing. Socially, the event did not happen. Therefore, to comment upon it would show a lack of culture. There, you may now let loose with impunity. Should the person next to you wrinkle her nose or offer comment, you are permitted to laugh inwardly at her faux pas. Oddly, stories about uncontrolled flatulence are often based on the presumption that out of sight is out of mind, that if the activity isn't observed, it will later be smelled in real life somewhat lively reaction on him. One day, he met a girl and fell in love. When it was apparent that they would marry, he thought to himself, "She'll never go through with the marriage with me carrying on like this." So he made the supreme sacrifice and gave up beans. Shortly after that, they were married. A few months later, on the way home from work, his car broke down, and since they lived in the country, he phoned his wife and told her that he would be late because he had to walk. On his way home, he passed a small cafe, and the wonderful aroma of baked beans overwhelmed him. Since he still had several miles to walk, he thought he would walk off any ill effects before he got home. So he went in and ordered 3 extra large helpings of beans. All the way home, he farted. By the time he arrived home, he felt reasonably safe. His wife met him at the door and seemed somewhat excited. She exclaimed, "Darling, I have the most wonderful surprise for you for dinner tonight." She put a blindfold on him and led him to his chair at the head of the table and made him promise not to peek. At this point, he was beginning to feel another fur coming on. Just as his wife was about to remove the blindfold, the phone rang. She once again made him promise not to peek until she returned and went to answer the phone. While she was gone, he seized the opportunity. He shifted his weight to one leg and let go. It was not only loud, but ripe as a rotten egg. He had a hard time breathing, so he felt for his napkin and fanned the air about him. He had just started to feel better when another urge came on. He raised his leg and rip. It sounded like a diesel engine revving and smelled worse. To keep himself from gagging, he tried fanning his arms a while, hoping the smell would dissipate. Things had just about returned to normal when he felt another urge coming. He shifted his weight to his other leg and let go. This was a real blue ribbon winner. The window shook, the dishes on the table rattled, and a minute later the flowers on the table were dead. While keeping an ear tuned in on the conversation in the hallway and keeping his promise of staying blindfolded, he carried on like this for the next 10 minutes, farting and then fanning each time with his napkin. When he heard the phone farewells, indicating the end of his loneliness and freedom, he neatly laid his napkin on his lap and folded his hands on top of it, smiling contentedly. He was the picture of innocence when his wife walked in, apologizing for taking so long. She asked if he had peeked at the dinner table. After assuring her he had not peeked, she removed the blindfold and yelled, "Surprise!" To his shock and horror, there were 12 dinner guests seated around the table. As wonderful as this tale is, it's clearly more fiction than truth. Even blindfolded, the fellow would have been sure to pick up on the presence of 12 dinner guests. People do shift around in their seats after all. Barbara, blast from the past. Nick Mickelson. Sightings. The Fur in the Car legend forms the pilot of the 1997 comedy short The Date and was the basis for a memorable 1998 television ad for Smart Beep. A version of the fart at the dinner party tale also shows up in the 1940 Carson McCullers novel The Herd is a Lonely Hunter, and is performed by Sheriff Brock on an episode of television's Picket Fences, and this was last updated on 22nd March 2011. Okay guys, so that is all for the autoerotica section. So in the next video, we will start on to the Better Business section under the autos header on the Snopes website. So like I said, this one was a bit long,